Just before we take this car out onto the road for its third drive, I need to secure these lights properly. They're just temporarily held in because whoever put these panels in lost the little metal inserts that allow you to screw into the metal. We need to fit the chrome eyebrows, which hopefully we'll be able to take off the parts car. And then we've got a couple of electrical problems. First of all, the front indicators aren't working. The hazard switch works fine, the rear indicators are working, but the front indicators, neither of them are working. It could be coincidentally that both bulbs are broken, but we're going to just whip out one of these lights and have a look at that. And the other thing on here is that the side light isn't working, so I wonder if that might be linked to the indicators. We'll take this light out and have a look. So the first thing to know is on the Mercedes SL, with no keys in the ignition, the hazard switch is directly wired, and even if you have light bulbs out, you'll see those two indicators flashing slowly like that. And if everything's working right, you should also see a flashing light in here. If you turn the ignition 2 clicks so that the brake light comes on, sorry, the battery light comes on, you should be able to test the indicators. You see how that's flashing fast? That's telling you that a bulb is out, and coincidentally it's showing you that bulb is out on either side. So you can see that the rear bulbs are both working, but the front bulbs are not working. A couple of things worth noting: if you were to unplug the hazard switch here, none of the indicators would work. So the indicators are actually wired through that hazard switch there. If on your car you find when you press the hazard switch down it's not blinking, that is normally a pretty good indication that the hazard relay, which lives through that hole there, you can also access it from underneath, is knackered. The very first thing we're going to check is just to make sure that the actual indicator bulbs themselves are working. So here's the light out, and I can see instantly what the problem is that fitting there should be in there tight, but it's not. That's broken. This plastic piece here should be crimped in under these crimps here, here and here, but those crimps are not enough to hold that in. So what we'll do is we'll take this out and we'll see if we can maybe bash those in with a hammer and chisel. Failing that, we could use glue. I don't want to do that, but we might have to. You might be lucky and just be able to use the sharp edge of mole grips to crimp that in, but the danger is that this metal is actually, or alloy, is quite brittle, and you might end up breaking it. So I think what we're going to do is just run a bead of super glue around there just to keep that in place. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was, and it should now work just fine. This is the other headlight, and will you look at that? Exactly the same problem here. So once again, we will try and crimp that in, and then we'll try and glue it. Having removed the headlight, it is worth pointing out that the headlights on the Mercedes R107 have always been a bit of a rust or moisture trap leading to rust. And you can see that even though this car has been painted here, we've got the first signs of rust. So we're just going to grind that out and paint over that with some rust encapsulator. You only need to take a look at our 1974 450 SL parts car to see what happens over time if you do not address that rust. Now, these headlight sections here are integral to the wing, so once you get rust in there, it is extremely difficult to repair, and generally you're going to be up for a new wing and all the trauma that that involves, because the new wings do not always fit precisely like the original Mercedes ones, and then you've got to start blending paintwork into the bonnet and all sorts of stuff like that. We're just going to spray the inside of those headlight bulbs with some Eastwood Rust Encapsulator, the matte red. We're going to take these chrome eyebrows from the parts car and transplant them onto the project car. These normally are rusted in here solid, and you have to drill the screws out. So we're going to have a go at doing that. Well, that was a bit of a battle getting those chrome eyebrows off. Now, you can still get these from the SL shop, so if money was no object, you would just go along to the SL shop and buy a new set. What we're going to do is refurbish these. We will just clean up the inside with a wire wheel and then paint that with matte silver rust encapsulator, and then we'll use a series of these little U-clips here just to screw that on to the car. Ideally, you'd use a slightly bigger U-clip like that, but the only problem is the bigger U-clips, their screw tends to have a higher profile than the smaller ones, and that might be a problem because there's not an awful lot of clearance when you put this on here. So we're going to try both out. If we can get away with the bigger ones, that's what we'll use. It's the next day, and we finished painting the inside of these chrome eyebrows with the Eastwood rust encapsulator matte silver. Now, these are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but by coating them with rust encapsulator now will ensure that that rust doesn't get any worse. And these little bits here, you won't see these once they're on the car. The only thing you see is the front facing edge there, which we will just polish with a little bit of auto salt. We finally got these eyebrows on. We still need to polish them. Often you'll find that underneath here is all rusted, so it's not a 5-minute job getting those on, but we got there in the end. Now that we've attached the chrome eyebrows, painted the inside of them, touched up these bowls, we now just need to whiz up to Mercedes and get some of these special clips so that we can put the headlights in properly and then move on to the next job. We've just been up to Mercedes to get these clips. There's 6 of them on the car. That's the part number there, 000-994-5645. Cost just over £5. The idea of these clips is that they just push in, and then when you put the screw in, that spreads these outer wings and stops the clip from falling out. Whether or not they fit after the car has been painted, of course, is another question. If for any reason you struggle to get that Mercedes part or it doesn't fit, you could probably also use this part number here from a company called SD Products based in the UK. It's a slightly more substantial fitting, and I think that would do the job too. Okay, that's the clip in there. We are just going to tap that in now with a little rubber mallet, and hopefully that will allow us to screw the headlight in. Okay, we eventually got these clips in all of the holes. You have to clear some of the holes out, but we should be ready to put the lights in. Right, we got the headlights in. Just arrived in the post the day after we ordered them are the 2 rubber bump stops that stop the bonnet crashing down on this part here. So we're just going to fit those. We've got these new bump stops in. The way to get the old ones out is to wind that nut all the way down, and although this might be rusted in there, you can generally wind it out like that. And the way to adjust these is to actually keep that loose and then close the bonnet, and you can just about get your fingers up here to screw this so it just touches this. Now you can see this is the bump stop here, and when you adjust it, you need to adjust it not so it's touching here, but so it's about 2 millimeters off, because when you come to close the bonnet, in order to close the bonnet, you have to be able to push that down a little bit more in order for it to catch here. So if you were to screw that down so it touches now, with the bonnet closed, when you came to close the bonnet the second time, you wouldn't be able to, because that would touch that. I think we'll also take this off here and paint it either with the Rust-Oleum, some gold paint. You could also use the Eastwood cadmium set to do that. You could also send it off to be plated as well, although there is a minimum order size for that, and you can still get these from the SL shop. They're not particularly cheap, but you can just buy a new one if yours is rusty. One of the things that looks dreadful in this car is this windscreen wiper washer tank here. Now we could send this off to get ultrasonically cleaned, but it wouldn't come out that well because the problem is that the plastic has gone yellow. For a long while I just haven't been able to bring myself to spend the 160 euros for buying a new tank, but the fact of the matter is there are no cheap sources of this tank. There's a place in Germany where we got this. I'll leave you the link below, and they advertise this as not having the cap, so I bought the cap separately here, but in actual fact this does come with the cap, so if you do buy a new one you don't need to buy the cap. So out with the old and in with the new. This windscreen washer tank just lifts out like that. As I say, you could send that off for cleaning, but it would never come back looking clean. What you need to do is bite the bullet and buy a new one. There we go. That looks a million times better. In fact, that probably looks too clean, but it'll be fine once we put some windscreen wiper washer fluid in there. That'll be absolutely fine. For anyone out there that has won the lottery and wants to buy a new tank for their car, that's the part number there. You can see that that fits a number of different cars. When the car comes back from the body shop, we will set about actually hooking up the pump and seeing if it works, because those lines to the windscreen wiper nozzles all are routed through the bonnet, so we'll have to take all of those out anyway. Wow, we finally got this car up the motorway. The motorway was actually closed, so we sat in traffic for an hour. The car didn't overheat. The engine sounds mint. It does sound like the subframe's not connected, but we made it to the body shop, so the next time you see this car, hopefully it will be painted. And we have Ram, the master welder, here at the moment. He doesn't want to be on camera, but I'm going to get him to look at the underside as well, because I do think Grace could have done a better job welding this car than the previous owners.